Corsi, the son of Honor Code, who earned over $2 million in just 11 starts, is here and ready to do business. Corsi is here to do business. Corsi is here to do business. All righty. Okay, let's stop that. Let's get this going, because tonight's show we have a very important guest, and I'm really excited to have him on. Actually, he's one of the main men in the training business within Canada, and probably throughout North America, and probably within the whole entire world. By the time he's finished with this operation, but let's start it off like this. So tonight's guest, Mark Casse. He's an inductee of the National Museum of Racing and Hall of Fame. He's an inductee of Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame. Man, he's got a list of things here. I'm trying to read them all off. 14-time Sovereign Award winner, 14-time leading trainer at Woodbine, 2-time leading trainer at Churchill Downs, 4-time leading trainer at Turfway Park, and 3-time leading trainer at Keeneland. If there's any more, he's going to correct me. But before he do that, let's introduce Mark Casse to the stage.
Hey, Derek.
Welcome to the platform, Mark Casse. It's an honor to have you on, man.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, look, before we get started, you're such a cool, calm guy for such a guy who has such a big operation going on. Like, where did you get that from?
I think it comes with age. You just learn, we have so many moving parts and so many balls in the air all the time that if I wasn't relaxed, then I'd be a mess. So no, I've just been doing it. I'm old, Derek. I've been doing it for a long, long time.
I would say, okay, I guess we go by the numbers. And if we reel it back to where you were born in 1961, so I guess that was a very long time ago.
Long time ago.
But I'm looking at your date of birth, February 14, and that shows some love. Is that Valentine?
I tell my wife all the time, that's why I have such a big heart, Yeah. I was a Valentine's baby.
Beautiful, man. And I got to tell you, you don't look that old at all. You look pretty good. For a man who controls so much and, runs so much, you look pretty darn good, man.
Well, I appreciate that.
Well, let's get into this and see some background from Mr. Mark Casse. Doing a little bit of digging and found out you were born in Indianapolis. Can you take me back to that time when you were like a teenager around there and tell me what it's all about and how'd you get involved in racing and get this kind of spark for racing?
I'll tell you, it goes back farther than that. So when my father was about 20 years old, he lived in Indianapolis, Indiana, and his father took him to Keeneland, and he fell in love with horse racing at that time. And then, of course, a little later, I came along, and when I was 5, we moved to Florida, to Ocala, Florida, where I live still to this day. And so I've always been around horse racing and I've loved it. My dad always said, if it doesn't win, I know nothing about it. He would know nothing about it. When most kids were, reading cartoons or watching and playing, I was reading the racing for him. So I always loved it. I ran my dad's training operation at age 15. Trained my first winter at 17. And the deal was that I would graduate from high school, train for the summer, and then go to college. Well, that all worked out, except I never did go to college. I went out, started training, and never looked back.
Oh man. Now you never been to college, but you absolutely carved out a really good career and a good operation. What's your words when you speak to youngsters about that path that you took? Would you say the same thing?
Yeah, I think, you got to find something you love. So when you wake up every day, you're not working, you're doing something you love. And I think you have to concentrate on things. My wife says that I'm a bit obsessive, but that obsession is what's made me successful. I don't do very many things, but whatever I do them pretty good.
Wow, man. I mean, to be honest, I share a similarity, which is a bit of obsession with something. If I get into it, I want to get into it deeper and deeper. And I don't know if it's good or bad, but I guess I'll find out.
Well, as I have spoke to, I go and speak sometimes to young people, and it doesn't matter what you're going to do. If you're going to sell shoes, be the best sales shoesman you can be. Just try to be whatever it is that you want to be, or whatever path you want to follow. Just make the goal to be the best you can be.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I was watching some of your interviews that you did with various people, and I saw somewhere where when you came to Canada, to Woodbine, and you started off with just 4 stalls. Can you share a little bit about that and to what you and how you've grown to this day?
Sure. So I was actually in the middle 80s. I was the leading trainer at Churchill Downs until about 10 years ago. I held the record for the most wins at spring meet. But I was aggravated with Kentucky because they don't really have a very good circuit. I had been introduced to horse racing, Canadian horse racing, at a young age with my father. We flew up when I was 12 to watch a horse run at Woodbine. And then, so I knew something about Toronto. My dad always loved Toronto. And so I was looking for a place. I had a couple of nice horses, and I was looking for a place to take them for the summer because Churchill Downs had ended. At the time, Ellis Park was a kind of a minor league team track. It's now since grown and it's much better. I came to Woodbine, and I thought they would kind of, be more receptive to me coming here. I had a large stable in Kentucky, and really early on, they only gave us 4 or 5 stalls, but I had another plan that really helped. And I had heard about Mrs. Merrill, Frank Merrill's widow. And so drove out, and I met with her, which at the time was about 5 miles from Woodbine. I think it's now a Canadian Tire center, but she had the farm where he had so many horses, and he had been very successful, but it was run down and it wasn't good. And I went to her and I said, can I rent this? She said, I'm not interested in renting it. I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. Not only will I rent it, but I'll fix it. And she agreed. And for a couple of years, I would drive a horse van back and forth every day. We would have 4 or 5 at the track, and then bring them, and then bring 4 or 5 more in. And it turned out, we were running horses. And at the time, Woodbine would look at your statistics and see your number of starts per stalls. And mine was like 10 times better than anybody else's. So they just kept, giving us more and more stalls. And, one thing that I liked so much about Toronto was that you could race there from March till December, and then I would be able to come home to Ocala for the winter time. There wasn't the pressure of running, 12 months of the year. Now that's changed. There is no downtime for us now. We run year round everywhere. So, but that was one of the things that really drew me to Canada. And it was, look, I'm fortunate. I'm in 2 Hall of Fames. I tell everybody, and I mean this with all my heart, if it wasn't for my wife, I would be in none of them. And if it wasn't for Woodbine is what really put us to the next level. And that might sound crazy when you hear that, you hear all these places. I've been leading trainers in Kentucky, at Keeneland, at Churchill Downs, Turfway, but Woodbine is really what excelled my career and my team's career to another level.
Do you think that Woodbine gets the respect on the international scale now that you've said that?
I think it's gotten better. I know it because everywhere I go, people will come to me and just, they know who I am. And they'll say, oh, yeah, you win all the races at Woodbine. And so I know they're watching. And if you look, especially over the last 4 or 5 years, our American betting has went way up. It struggled a little bit, honestly, in Canada, but our presence, our product in the U.S. has become stronger and stronger. So it gets respect.
Oh, wow. I don't want to forget this question from one of the viewers, and I think it was Jennifer Morrison. That I think she's a writer, and she done some stuff online as well. And her question to you was, what's your thoughts on the current state of racing in Ontario? And she wants to know if you watched the Together town hall meeting, and wagering is down, prices are stagnant, and fuel sizes are just okay. And she want to know your thoughts on all that.
Yeah, I did not see it. I was in another meeting at the time. I also am on the executive board of the Ocala Breeder Sales Company, which is the largest 2-year-old sales company in the world. I also sit on the advisory board of HISA, the new governing in the U.S. So I was not. I read all about it. My answer to that is, there's a lot of things going on in a lot of places. Woodbine is not the only place that's struggling a little. I thought all in all, the field sizes look pretty good. Just being able to continue with COVID and all the things that have happened over the last 3 or 4 years for us just to maintain the purses that we have, I think, I'm happy with. Obviously, they're struggling in California. I think you're going to see, I think they're going to have some more purse cuts. Florida is struggling. So there's a lot of places struggling. There's, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, there were not as many ways for people to spend their money. It's just like TV. We used to, 20 years ago, we had 3 or 4 channels to watch. Now there's hundreds. And so I would say to you, in my mind, I feel horse racing is stronger. I have no worries about Woodbine and racing. I did a few years ago. In fact, I had started to scale back a little bit and thought maybe I should head in another direction. I can tell you in 2023, I went stronger and harder. So I plan to have a very strong presence in 2024 in Canada.
Wow. Now, and that's being competitive, I would imagine, because I mean, seeing all the titles that you've won over the years, you would think someone would get tired and say, you know what, I'll let Kevin Attard win this time, or I'll let someone else win. But it doesn't happen like that in your world, right?
It's funny because, and it goes back a while, but remember when the Yankees won the World Series 2 or 3 times in a row? And I said, what drives you, to want to win after winning the previous year. And I can tell you what it is. You don't want to lose.
Hey, I agree with you. I agree with you.
And it's a challenge because I feel like more than ever, we can't just be a little better. We always have to be a lot better because there's a lot of people who would love to see me dethroned.
But Mark, that's funny because like you told me earlier that when you first got here, you were just 4 stalls, and they weren't putting their hands out to you, but somehow you found your way in. But now you've transformed that and you've turned it into greatness. So people might want to see you lose, but isn't that some kind of what do you call that when you start from the bottom and now you're there and now people say, but this is Mark Casse. Were you always the Mark Casse?
I don't, honestly, I don't really worry about other people. I worry, I have to be happy with myself and what I strive to do. And I'm always trying to be better. I have a few sayings that I live by. One is, if you stand still, you get run over. I never stand still. I'm always trying to be better. And I think you've seen that over the years where we've gotten stronger and stronger. And I mean, I don't know. I'm now 62 years old. I've been doing this for 43 years. I am tired. But I think I still have a good 10 years in me.
Now, I was telling you earlier that quite a few years back, when you, I guess, you weren't so strong in the States, but we all would cheer for you when you got horses in the big races in the States. We'll always cheer for you because we were happy to see a guy who was leading a trainer here in Canada, and now you're going against some other competitors who are pretty darn good. And
well, I appreciate that, and I've always, I feel when I compete outside of Canada, in North America, we've been fortunate enough. We won the Queen Anne at Royal Ascot, which was a great feat for us. I feel like I'm there representing Woodbine in Canada, and I'm very proud of that. I'm proud. We've won six Breeders' Cups, and of those 6 Breeders' Cups, 5 of those Breeders' Cup winners had spent a fair amount of time at Woodbine. We also have had 2 classic winners, War of Will and Sir Winston, the Preakness and the Belmont, and both of those horses would not necessarily have been as successful as they were. They may not have been classic winners had they not spent time at Woodbine. That's how much Woodbine means to me and means to our team and to the development of our horses. I don't think people get that as much as they should. Woodbine for us is a place to get these horses to prosper and to get better and better. And I don't think there's a better place in North America. I know there is no better place.
I'm pretty sure Woodbine will be very happy to hear you say that, endorsing their product and what they're putting out there.
And
so
like
that's
I said to you, Derek, it's more than, it's just not winning races. It's developing horses. And it's just a great place to develop them.
That's beautiful to hear.
I have a friend, he says, it's very dear to my heart. He said, Mark Casse doesn't train horses for a race. He trains them for a career.
Wow.
And Woodbine's a big part of their careers.
That's pretty cool. Now, you said you won the Queen Anne. What is?
Yeah, Queen Anne was, we got to meet the Queen herself. It's at Royal Ascot. We took a filly called Tepin, one of the greatest turf fillies in the world ever. And
I got to stop you before you go because that's my second favorite horse in the entire world. First favorite horse is the great Zenyatta, and Tepin is the number 2.
So we took Tepin over. In all honesty, Derek, when I went there, I didn't really realize how tough it is to go over there and win. Now, Wesley Ward's had a lot of success over there, but he's done it mostly with sprinters, and sprinters are not what that's not what they're known for. She beat boys at going a mile, which was on a soft turf course. So it was interesting. I'll tell you a quick little story. So after she won, I did a bunch of interviews, and so then they said to me, okay, I said, when do I get to meet the queen? And they said, you missed her. And I was like, really? So the Racing Post, I didn't realize she read the Racing Post every day, but the next day I did an interview and they said, will you come back? I said, only if I get to meet the queen. So the next year it happens, we came back. We brought a filly over to La Cornell, and my wife and my son Colby were in a box, and we're about 2 hours from the race, and there's a knock. The boxes are closed there. So this guy comes in and he says, the queen would like to meet you.
Wow.
And so my son Colby and my wife Tina, we went and met her, and she was the nicest. She was so nice. She just, all she wanted to do was talk about horses. And she knew all about Tepin and how great she was. And it was something I'll never forget. My son, who was like 13 at the time when we left, he goes, Dad, were you nervous? And I said, no, not really. He goes, I could hardly stand up. My knees were shaking. So, and she was just a lovely lady, lovely lady.
Wow, man, that's a beautiful story. I'm pretty sure that memory will stay with you forever, man.
Always.
Wow, I've always heard that she was really a nice person. Always heard this.
And loved horse racing. Loved horse racing.
Big supporter of the sport. She was good for horse racing. I want to ask you a little bit about Wonder Wheel and World Approval. And I want to ask you, because I think Woodbine has a Catch a Glimpse stake now. And what do these horses mean for you?
Well,
do they have a special place in your heart?
Yeah, Catch a Glimpse was our first Breeders' Cup winner, and that's a funny story there in itself. So this is how good Woodbine, this is what Woodbine means to us. So I had Catch a Glimpse at Saratoga, and she was very, very nervous. And anybody that races at Saratoga knows when we go to the paddock, we have to walk for about a quarter of a mile with people on both sides screaming and yelling, throwing things. And a lot of horses can't take it. Well, she lost her mind. So I can remember after the race telling Gary Barber, I said, Gary, I have to get her out of here. She's going to go crazy. I'm going to send her to Woodbine. So I sent her to Woodbine and we ran her, and she won. And I thought she won pretty impressively. Then she came back and she won again. And she just kept getting better and better. Then she went on and, she won the Breeders' Cup. Had I not moved her to Woodbine at the time, if I'd left her in New York longer, you would have never heard of Catch a Glimpse. Wow. There's another thing. So so many places, Derek, that we race, especially in the US, we're always having to change. We may be at Churchill Downs for 2 months. We then have to go to Ellis Park for a month or two, Kentucky Downs. If you're in South Florida, you're at Palm Meadows a lot, and you ship down to Gulfstream. But one of the things that I like so much about Woodbine is horses get their houses. They get to live in the same stall and run out of the same stall. And it gives them more confidence. And a horse like her, that's what it did for her.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, I mean, do you always remember the names of your horses?
No. I mean, no, not always, but I can remember horses. I can't remember people. I can't remember. And a lot of times I remember their breeding more than they do. But I can tell you most of the time, you know, what my horses did and why I did what I did and where they did it.
You know
One
that.
of the things, I only do a few things. I've just started back playing golf. I gave it up for about 15 years, but my youngest son started to play golf. I fish. We have our own, so I didn't have to go far. We built our own ponds about 20 years ago in our front yard. And so I go out and I fish. And the other thing I do is I play chess. And I like chess because you're always having to think 4 or 5 moves ahead. And that's the way training horses are, especially the good ones. You kind of have to have a plan and how you want to get there. And what now, since I've been doing it so long, I think back and I have that memory of what did I do with this horse and how did I do it. And so I can reflect back on the past, which is a good thing sometimes.
Wow. You know what? You just got me thinking, because I'm like, you're playing chess. I wonder if there's any other trainers out there who play chess as well, because to be quite honest, that must give you an edge on probably a lot of guys being able to maneuver like that.
Well, we have, and one of the things, we have a bunch of people. My wife and I have, I think, 10 people that have been with us over 30 years. I have a couple that have been with us 40 years. And so we have a strong team. And one of the things that makes us strong is to be able to move horses around. Right now we just got back from the Breeders' Cup, but we left 4 or 5 really nice horses out at Del Mar. And, we're getting ready to now have a big meet at down in South Florida. Gulfstream starts going pretty strong. We're going to have a few running at Oaklawn. I try to move my horses around how I think they fit in different places. And luckily, and through years of doing this, we have the infrastructure to be able to do that and to move horses around.
Now speaking of Gulfstream and speaking of about to get started, numerous trainers have told me that a lot of times the owners, they pick and choose who they want to ride their horses. Is this the same for you, or are your operation run a little bit differently?
No, we still have to answer for, a lot of my guys, Nick Tomlinson, and so that they think you and I'll say, well, I can't ride that rider or whatever. They think I make it up, but no, these, I train for a lot of people that have been doing it for a long time, and they have their opinions. I have to keep a list of who's good and who's bad in each, camp. And yeah, and they all have different likes and dislikes.
Well, you know what? The reason why I brought it up, because one of the viewers, they're vouching and they're hoping that Mark Casse would put my guy, he's my guy too, and put this guy on maybe a horse or two. And I hope you see it, because it'll be awesome.
So Rocco, is it Joe?
No,
Which
Rocco Bowen.
Oh, I don't know him.
Well, see, there we go. So now there's a chance Rocco Bowen, he probably will be down in Florida, and he can probably go over and say, hi, Mark Casse. My name is Rocco Bowen, and nice to meet you.
Definitely, you made me. Now I'll look for him.
See, there you go.
I do, I do have to. It doesn't matter how many races you win. I still have to answer to the guys, the men and the women that pay the bills.
Absolutely.
And what's funny is I can, if I pick a rider and the rider does everything perfect, but doesn't win, then I hear about it. But if they pick a rider and the rider has a terrible trip, I never hear a word about it. So, but that's part of my job.
Well, there you go with the chess game again. So, it's all part of the game. Exactly. Now, I want to ask you, speaking of jockeys, I want to ask you, what does this jockey mean to your legacy? The one and only Patrick Husbands. How does he fit into your legacy as you go on?
I mean, he's won, I think, almost 1,600 races for me. I can still remember. So you know how I figured out who Patrick Husbands was. His brother was working for me, named Anthony Husbands. And he goes, my brother's going to ride a race at Fort Erie. Can you watch him ride? And I said, okay. So it just happens I watch the race, and the horse is on the outside fence, and Patrick's whipping and driving, and goes over the outside fence right past the wire. And I was like, well, he's game. And what happened at the time, I had Mockingbird Farm, and I was the general manager for them, and we would sell about 95% of our horses. The only ones we wouldn't sell were the ones that were crazy. So I had all kinds of crazy horses, and I used to get Patrick, and he would get on these crazy horses and ride them, and he did good. And it's interesting. In the beginning, I would be said, why are we riding this Patrick Husbands? And then a few years later, it was, why isn't Patrick Husbands riding our horse? And yeah, we've been successful together for years and years and years and years. He calls me dad. I call him son. He's every Christmas morning, he wakes me up. The one morning I get to sleep, the phone will start ringing, and I'll say to my wife, it's Patrick. And sure enough.
That's great, man. Now, let's stay on Patrick for a minute, because Patrick means a lot to the island of Barbados. By the way, I was born there too as well. But I mean, he means so much to the horse community down there. Do you think one day he's going to say, you know what, I'm finally going to retire? He kind of hinted at it maybe a couple of years back.
A couple of years ago, it wasn't last year. It was the year previous. He called me, and there was about 4 days of racing left, and I don't remember who it was, but he had lost a close friend, and he called me. He goes, he calls my wife TT. Her name's Tina, but he calls her TT. He said, this was on a Thursday or Friday. He goes, I want you and TT to fly to Toronto because I'm going to retire on Sunday. And I said, Patrick, ride the 4 days, take the winter off. Right now, you're not thinking clearly. And I said, if in the spring you decide you're going to retire, TT and I will be there. But you're not retiring until the spring. And that was a couple of years ago. So he's still going.
Well, I'm glad you kind of mentioned that.
I have to tell you. So when we go to Barbados, everybody knows us because of Patrick. If I walk down the road, I remember last time I went there, I went through customs, and the customs was looking, where are you here for? And he goes, Mark Casse, Patrick Husband, come on. Yeah. So, everybody, Patrick's a pretty famous guy. And
yes, indeed, he is. You carved out quite a legacy on track, and now it looks to me like, as you progress in your life and your career and everything else, it seems like you're building a pretty good reputation, off the track as well. Is that important to you?
That's the most important thing to me. What we do on the track is important, but in the end doesn't really mean anything. I'm in a part of my life right now. I've been working very hard with trying to, get our industry back on the right path. We have a lot of issues going on. I've been very strong, as I said to you, with HISA, and I've stood up and fought for a lot of things, trying to get our game. It needs some work, and I've worked hard on it. My goal is this business, this game has been very good to me. And when I leave it, I want it to be better than when I came into it. So you're seeing me do a little bit more of that. I've been very outspoken and will always continue to be. I might not always be right, but I'm gonna tell you the way I feel.
Absolutely. I saw one of your interviews, and I guess you were talking about the synthetic track, Tapeta, versus the original dirt track. And have you gotten any backlash from the people down south about that?
No, because they can't fight me. No, because there's nobody in the world that has started more horses on dirt and synthetic and turf than us. Nobody. So there isn't anybody that can dispute it. And the numbers are there. I mean, the Jockey Club has got 12 or 15 years of statistics. Now, do a lot of people not want to see synthetics? Of course, but no, they don't. Nobody fights me about it.
But the thing that puzzles me is that based on numbers, and I've seen various sources have said the same thing. You've got more horses breaking down on the dirt versus synthetic. But yeah, why won't tracks try to change over or at least give it a shot?
It's very frustrating. It's also very expensive. But I've said all along that people say we have to worry about tradition. I say we're going to be history. We're not going to have to worry about tradition. It all started, I think, with David Wilmot, and I think Avestia broke down and they had to put him down on the dirt. And that's, I think, at the time he went to Europe and saw and heard about this track. And that's how it all started. One thing I will say about Toronto and Woodbine, and it's something I'm really proud of being associated with Woodbine and Toronto, is they usually stay ahead of the game. They weren't afraid to go out and put in the synthetic, and they've stuck by it. Just little things, like 3 years ago, we said, they said, we're not going to let riders hit overhanded. And there was a lot said about that. But I think in the end, it's made our industry better and stronger. I wish, and I have a lot of friends that are riders that will not like that I say this, but I would have liked to have seen it throughout North America. We have, with HISA, have changed it where you can only hit your horse so many times. But I don't know why we couldn't survive the way we are now with, hitting just underhanded. So I also, we have so many rules and regulations now south of the border. And I keep saying, why doesn't anybody look at what goes on north of the border? They have the best record. Should we not maybe follow in their footsteps? But it's not easy, Derek. It's not easy. Yeah. I get very frustrated.
I can only imagine. I'm not sitting in your seat. I mean, you're rubbing shoulders with a lot of high-powered people in horse racing, so I can only imagine.
Oh yeah, and like I said, I'm not afraid to tell you the way I feel, and I get in some pretty heated discussions.
I bet. It's a hot topic for anywhere where there's a dirt track. I'll tell you my story, and you can tell me this, because Woodbine pretty much is the powerhouse here in Canada, probably the only powerhouse in Canada. For every racetrack, kind of struggling a little bit, but I think this year they've had a pretty successful Prince of Wales Stakes day. I had a chance to speak with some people down there, and they were telling me pretty much that the dirt track is what horses need, and some persons were saying the dirt track is is what they're used to. This natural. Is there a
How is dirt natural? Think about it. You know what natural is? Grass. Horses weren't born on the dirt. They were born on the grass. Dirt is not natural. Grass is natural. And the closest thing that we can do to be like grass is synthetic. And I'm sorry that, I know, there's a lot of people that don't agree with me. There's a lot of people at Woodbine that wouldn't agree with me. But I'm telling you, I've told everybody, I've done 40 some years of studying, and I have a large group to study with. It's not even close. So to sit there, everybody can have their opinions. I love Fort Erie. I wish every dirt racetrack was as good as Fort Erie. If we had that, if that was the case, we'd have a lot less problems. I say that too. We have all these big racetracks. These horses are breaking down left and right on the dirt. I was like, maybe you should go and look and see how that Fort Erie's racetrack is. So I'm a big Fort Erie fan. And unfortunately for Fort Erie, it's not, with how it's much more difficult now across the border. It's, you have to have a passport. And also now all the inter-track wagering where they can do it in Buffalo, the draw isn't there. It's Fort Erie's done nothing wrong. Fort Erie is a wonderful place. It's just, it's very unlucky in its location.
And it's really interesting because it's like right next door to the border. You would figure that it would probably attract a lot more, but I've always wondered about that. I went to a bar right beside the river, and I'm a stone throw away from the track. I'm like, why is this happening? And I just can't figure it out. But
again,
I guess somebody has to tell me.
You got to have you have to have a passport. You have to, I think 9/11 was probably changed a lot of things. And again, it wasn't Fort Erie didn't do anything wrong. And Fort Erie is a lovely place. It's just in a tough location.
I've never heard that one, and that's interesting. That's an interesting take. The 911 part of it, and I'm happy to have a passport because I know a lot of Americans don't take those other steps. They just want to, just run across and come back across. Right. They don't worry about the other stuff, right?
Right.
Quite interesting. Let's change gears a little bit and let's talk about this year's King's Plate. And you're the first trainer, Patrick Husband, the first jockey to win the King's Plate in quite some time. What does that mean to your legacy? Was that something that you put on your radar and you say, look, you know what? Regardless of whoever they bring, I'm gonna win this. Was that your thought list?
It's not been that quite that easy. The King's Plate, Queen's Plate, we've had some success there, but it hasn't been easy. It's definitely a goal of ours every year, to win. It's quite proud because both those, we finished first and second in it. And both those horses, we went out and we found them, purchased them. And I felt like they got better and better in their careers. And again, Derek, that's what we're always trying to do. We're trying to build a career, and sometimes it takes races. And both those horses got better and better as the year went on. Tepin was a Tepin World Approval. Those horses are horses I'm very proud of because they started out as average horses, became great horses. Unlike, say, a Wonder Godot or a War of Will, they were all, or a Classic Empire. They were really good horses from the beginning. We just kind of went along. But horses like Tepin, even Paramount Prince really came along, as did Elysian Field. So yeah, there's a little more even satisfaction when you see a horse go from being mediocre to the best of his crop.
I want to ask you about those kind of races where there's a lot of money on the line. And do you train any differently? Do you just say this horse is good? I can just go and win, or do you just how does this happen? Because it seems you always have a plan. To me, at least, it seems like Mark Casse is going to have a plan.
My plan would be more with the racing, not the training. The horses, we train them pretty well. I think so much of it's overdone. I think there's more horses overtrained than undertrained. If I can tell you there, if you have the best horse and you don't do anything with them for 2 weeks, you're going to beat me. It doesn't matter. You got to have the best horse. But the way you make them better sometimes is planning. We also have a tremendous training center in Florida. So I don't think it gets enough recognition. These horses spend the winter, and they do a lot here in Ocala. And so when you see those horses come to Toronto, those horses are at the peak of their peak performance early on, and they get there by what we do here in Ocala.
And
that's where we have an advantage where, very few people have. We have our own training center, and it's helped us over the years.
Now, I had a peek at the training center online. It looks beautiful. I got to say, was that an investment that you say, you know what, this is the retirement package for me? Is that the thought process when you were developing that?
It's kind of like they say, with franchises don't make any money while they're operating. When they make their money is when they sell them. So it's taken my wife and I years and years and years to develop all this. And ultimately, when we do decide to retire, that will be the cherry on top. But it's been very good to us. About, I would say 10 years ago, I decided that either we had to go big or go home. And we decided to go big. And it's worked well for us.
But, you're the first guest that I've had that so many people. I knew you were a great guest. I saw some of your interviews. I knew the kind of legacy that you're leaving behind. I know that how important you are to not only the industry within Canada, but also in the USA. But there's a lot of people that hit me up and texted me or called me, and they told me congratulations. They told me congratulations for having you on the show. So I'm just saying, like, that's the kind of man that you've carved yourself into, and you're creating such a great legacy. And to me, that tells me a lot about you and your operation. And speaking of that, tell me a little bit about the operation here in Canada, where you have so many Barbadians.
Yes.
In your stable.
We have guys that have been with us. Grooms and exercise riders have been with us 20, 25 years. I mean, Barbados is huge. We talked about Patrick Husbands, David Adams. I mean, they're great horse people too. They just do a tremendous job, and they love their horses. So wouldn't be there. We definitely wouldn't be where we are without Patrick Husbands and David Adams and so many others.
Oh, that's good to hear. And I'm pretty sure the horse people, not only in Barbados, but elsewhere, will be very happy to hear that as well. It means a lot to the horse people. And to be honest, they really do love their horses. Trust me.
They do. We were fortunate enough to win the Gold Cup in Barbados with Sterling.
I remember that time.
And that was a party like no other. Patrick was riding Sterwins backwards, coming after and I'm like, Patrick, get off. I love him. Sometimes I like to.
Mr. Husbands. That's what I call him every time I see him, Mr. Husbands.
For Patrick.
Yes. Within at Woodbine itself, Woodbine, for me personally, watching Woodbine, I've seen the development at Woodbine. I love the development. There's horse people who are concerned. Should there be a concern? It's the burning question. Should there be a concern? Because for me as a fan watching, it looks beautiful to watch on TV. Everything looks good, but is there a concern? Horsemen get concerned.
I don't, you know, everything went a mess. I don't even remember. Was it 15 years ago, 12 years ago, when the government decided they were going to take everything away from Woodbine, and then they realized, come to find out, how important it is. And I don't think there's a concern. You got to remember something too. Woodbine is a nonprofit organization. It's for the horse people. Some people don't always believe that is the case, but I believe it is. And they're sitting on about over $1.5 billion worth of real estate. So there's a lot of room. Just, there needs to be development, but it takes time. Look, COVID was hard. Everything got shut down. Canada took it probably, harder. Toronto took it harder than I know we did in the U.S. And it's taken a while to bounce back, but I think it's strong. I think the racing looks good. If you look at the field sizes in other places, our horse population, we're down from somewhere like from 32,000 registered foals to now 18,000. That's a huge drop. So that Woodbine is able to sustain the numbers that they are, and also even remain with the purses that they're that says something. And I think we're only a year or two away from being bigger and stronger and having some other things go on. But I don't think you should be concerned at all.
No, well, that's good to hear. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people who will be very excited to hear that, hearing from your mouth, actually. So that's pretty cool. There you go, guys. Mark Casse, he said it. There's no concern, guys. Keep doing your thing. Speaking of that, talking about the sizes of the races and so forth, in Japan, every race has about 22 horses. Now, the size of the fields are up. What's the difference?
I honestly, Derek, I don't know enough about Japanese racing. Yeah, I can't even. I wouldn't even know how to begin to compare. So I'm going to stay away from it because it's just something I don't know. I do know they love their horse racing.
Yeah.
They love their horse racing. It's
true.
funny when I find that when if I'm around Toronto and walking around, I think a lot of Asian and they watch horse racing because they'll come to me and I'll be shocked. We'll be somewhere and they'll come up and try to meet me or take a selfie. So I know that
You're watching
the horse racing.
Mm-hmm. Wow, but that's good too. That's very good.
But I don't know why they have big fields and why, yeah.
Okay, so I want to get this in really fast before you shut me off here. But I want to ask you about
shut you off, but yeah.
I'm glad to hear that, actually. So I want to hear about the LASEX program. I've heard some rumors that perhaps that horses may run without LASEX and so forth. Is that a possibility, and is it heading in that direction?
In my opinion, no,
Mm-hmm.
It's not a possibility. I think that but this is just a personal opinion. I'm not, I don't know any secrets, but I do believe that in the end, people are going to see the higher above. They're going to understand that LASIK is a necessity, and I feel pretty strong about that. When I decided to back and fight for change in the U.S., I said the only way that I would do it is if I was promised that at least we would take a very long, strong look at Lasix and keeping it. So if I was a gambling man, and I don't bet on horses, but I think we'll be fine. I think we'll. And one thing about it, and again, it's one of the things that I love about Toronto and Woodbine. Whatever they do south of the border, that doesn't mean that's what they're going to do north of the border. And I think so many times the people in charge north of the border are smarter than the ones south of the border.
Some people will be smiling after hearing that. What I was going to ask you, about the race next year, the King's Plate race. I heard that Woodbine offered a formal invitation to the King.
Oh, that would be nice.
Wouldn't it be nice? Is that
it makes it very tough to move around in the grandstand, but it would be nice. Yes.
Now, after hearing something like that, is that something that Mark Casse and that chess playing mentality would say, you know what, on the calendar, I'll make sure I'm there, and I'll make sure that I'll win that race.
I'll be there. I can never make sure I'm going to win the race, but I can assure you, king or no queen, I still want to win that race. So I'm going to, I'm going to be doing my very best. Right now, we have a horse called My Boy Prince, who was very good he was third in the Breeders' Cup, and proud of him. We bought him at the CTHS sale there in Toronto. He would be that's where he'd be looking right now, as a possibility. We'll see if we can get him to go 1.25 miles. But king or no king, I want to try to. I've got that one marked on my calendar, and we're going to try to win it again.
I say that's a pretty competitive way to run an operation. It's probably a really good, smart way, and to keep it going. You've had quite a few hundred, maybe thousands of wins around this place. You've carved out quite a legacy. You've got all these soldiers. I mean, soldiers who would fight for you, Mark. Someone just said you're like the Pat Riley of horse racing to these guys here in Toronto. Do you have a pep talk before you start training, or you come to the barn, or like, what do you say to the guys?
It's past that now. We don't do that. All our people, sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. I'm not big on putting pressure on people. I think that, we all just got to try to do the best we can. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. I probably talk to David Adams. He's my main guy there. I talk to him 10 or 15 times a day. We laugh, we have a great time. But he doesn't feel any pressure, because he knows win, lose, or draw, we're going to do it again tomorrow. And I think that's important. It's also important with riders. I don't like to be too hard on riders. I think that they all make mistakes. And you know what? If you make a mistake, we talk about it, and let's just try not to do it again. But it happens. And, one of the things I look at, Derek, is I'm so lucky to be able to play this game, because it's a game. It's a life. It's been really, really good to me. And I just feel lucky. So some days we have bad days, some days we have good days, but I'm just lucky that this has been my life.
Well, on that note, I just want to say we are lucky to have you. I think Woodbine was very lucky to have you, to put you on their team, and now you putting them on your team. I think I'm pretty lucky to have you here on my show tonight. So I want to thank you. You've been a very good guest. You kept your word, and I appreciate it. Appreciate you coming on here, man.
I'll tell you what. If we win the King's Plate next year, we'll do it again.
You know what?
Or even
guys,
if we don't, we can do it again. You just let me know.
Guys, you heard that? It's out of his mouth. It's not me saying it. I've recorded it. It's here for life on YouTube, on Facebook, on everywhere else there. So
we'll do it again. You just tell me.
All right. Well, Mark Casse, you were a great guest. It was an honor having you, man. Best of luck all the way. I'm pretty sure you don't need luck, but
you always need luck, Derek. But thank you. Enjoyed it. I didn't know what we would talk about for an hour, but you didn't have any problem. We went right through it. So
I'm glad you made it before falling asleep.
I think this is probably my longest interview, so you just won that. Okay.
Well, there you go.
All right. You have a great night, everybody.
You too, and thanks for being on. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Mark Casse, y'all. He's a great guest, man. You know what? He's one of the people who I really admire because hearing his story started from 4 stalls at Woodbine. I mean, he started training long before that, but coming over here and carving out quite a legacy for himself and creating a team, now grown so big all over North America. You know, quite an operation. So hats off to him. I'm pretty sure the guys underneath him, all of his assistants, they do a wonderful job. David, Nick, of course. Thank you, my brother. What else can I say? Can't say much more. You guys know it all. You know, that's Mark Casse. He's the brand. He's the name. Until next time.